but they appear when you hover over them. So if you see the one on the far left, it looks like a microphone. If you click that, if it's red, it means you're not or nobody's hearing you, and if it is black, then they're hearing you. So go ahead. You don't have to say anything, but go ahead and click and unclick those microphones, and then I'll be able to see that you guys are able to do that. All right. Good. I'm seeing a lot of the microphones are, yeah. You can go ahead and mute those again. As a presenter, I also have the ability to mute your microphone. I joke with my students that this is like the greatest time ever for me because I can mute my kids so that they can't speak in the classroom. So that's something that you can mute and unmute for the kids, but they also can unmute themselves to speak when they need to, in the same way that we're having you do that. So now that we have the microphone mute and unmuted instruction there, I am going to pause in my presentation just to see if there are any questions thus far that you guys have. And feel free to unmute and ask.
Ron, just a quick question, because I've been working with some kids on the Webex in tutoring. And I had a situation this morning where the feedback was so bad.
Oh, so that kid's got their microphone turned up way too loud.
Way too loud.
Yeah, so they've got their microphone or their speakers way too loud. If they're in a small room, they're going to get that happening too. So one suggestion that you might make to that kid is ask them if they can wear headphones as they're listening to the presentation. What's happening is it's coming out of their speaker and then it's going back into their microphone.
I went into settings to try and turn mine down or theirs down, and then she, even just adjusting that a little, she couldn't hear me. So I just turned it back up to where it was.
So headphones really will take care of that because their microphone won't pick up your voice through the speakers. Especially if they're using an older device. A lot of the newer devices account for that. But headphones are a quick, easy fix.
Okay, and then the other thing was she couldn't share her screen.
And so that's a setting in the room settings that the instructor can turn on and off.
Oh.
So we'll talk about those settings through as we move on. Other quote? Were there any other? Did you have any other questions, Danny?
That was it. Thank you, Ron. That was just a big one, that feedback, and I just so.
Yeah, and then nothing's happening with that noise. You're not going to get any instruction at that point because it's just too distracting.
Right. So. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ron.
Other questions before we move on? All right. So I have really bad eyes. So you'll notice me looking up. I'm actually broadcasting this on a big screen TV too, so that I can see a little better. So if you're seeing me my chin, it's because I'm looking up on the big screen to read everything. So I'm not, watching TV while I'm doing that. All right. So here's something that some of you might have access to and some of you might not. We're finding out that the Chromebooks make it, they have a different software for Webex than others. So some of you may have this button that appears in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and some of you might not. Or you have this button, but it doesn't have all of the same options. This is your view, the different views that you can have for Webex. I personally like what I call the Brady Bunch view. It looks like the beginning of the Brady Bunch where there's the 9 boxes with everybody there. That's great if you've got so that you can see everybody in the room at the same time, or almost everyone. If you've got a group of like 80 people, it's still going to carry to another screen and you got to right arrow over. Unfortunately, some of the Chromebooks don't have that option. Do have some of the other options available there. But basically what's going to happen is the speaker is going to appear in the farthest left. And if you're in a grid or something, you're going to be in the upper left-hand corner. And it's automatically going to shift who's talking to that box. So if you have 5 students in the class and you're presenting, the one who's talking is going to be moved to the main screen. If you're in the active speaker view, the person speaking is going to be in on the main screen, and then this lower corner, that's going to be you. So, and it automatically, intuitively switches that. So if you have this little box with the 4 squares in it, the grid view, can you just raise your hand real quick? I'm just going to scroll through who I see. It looks like most of you have that option, but there are a few of you that don't. My guess is you are the ones that are on the Chromebooks. If you're on a Chromebook, that seems to be the issue. If you're not on a Chromebook and don't have that view, then we'll talk more about that a little bit later. It's not a like deal killer, and it doesn't break anything. Like it's not like you can't still do the same things. It's more of a preference issue. Before I move on to the next slide, are there any questions that I can answer? And feel free to type those in the box or just unmute your mic to ask. All right, then I'm going to move on, but chime in at any time if you have any questions. All right, this is just going through the specifics on what each one of those speaker boxes that we talked about does. So this would be the active speaker view. Everybody else in the class is at the bottom, and then we have one on the main screen there. This is that grid view. Once you get up to about 20, what happens is there's a little box that appears here with an arrow, and that moves you into the next screen full of people. When we did a faculty meeting, we had like 90 people in a Webex, and so we had to click through to be able to see everyone. Be aware that the more people, the longer it's going to take to load their images. And if you're struggling to keep up with your video is catching, or your audio is having trouble, the fastest way to fix that is to turn off your camera. Because what's happening when that happens is your personal, wherever you're at, the Wi-Fi is struggling to keep up. We're seeing this a lot with kids who have multiple family members that are all online at the same time. They're having trouble keeping up with all of the video. And so cutting out the video and just keeping the audio really helps fix that. So I'm seeing a couple of you are turning off your cameras right now. So that may have been an issue. And hopefully that kind of helps things a little bit. All right. So these are the buttons that you will have available to you. Almost all of you will have these buttons. If you're on a Chromebook, you might be missing 1 or 2 things. When you're running a meeting, this is what you'll see. You have the mute and unmute for the microphone. You have the mute and unmute for video. You have the share screen button. Now, apparently Chromebook users are not having this one appear. We'll want to double check to make sure when you're running a meeting if that's the case. But that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm sharing my presentation with you, so you get to see what's on my screen. Hosts also get a record button. I'm currently recording this meeting. I do that so that I can share those out to people who weren't at the meeting. I was actually a little slow on this one, and I didn't start recording until about maybe 5 or 6 minutes ago. But yeah.
When you're sharing your screen, can you still see everyone else?
So what I get, and I wish I could show you this, what I get is a box in the, well, I can move the box wherever I want. I get to see 4 people, and then I can scroll through the rest of them.
Okay.
Right,
I was
right
just
now,
to know if it was the same thing. Okay.
yeah. So right now, I think you're seeing the share screen on the biggest part of your screen. You still get to see me a little bit. Is that right? A small version of
Mine
me?
is the Brady Bunch view, and then I have the small window as your presentation, so I can still see everything. But yeah, it's just how I prefer to have it set up.
Excellent. So, we're all learning how this is going at this point. So I know how it looks from my perspective, but everybody depends on what your preferences are. Thanks for the question, Marco. I appreciate it. Please, just anybody else jump in to clarify.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I literally just got the link to the meeting.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, guys. What did I miss?
Well, I'm recording this, so we'll get that out to you so you can see the first part. Right now, we're just going over the different buttons that appear on the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
And we can fill you up with anything else that you missed through email later or the presentation.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So if you are, let's see. Good. It looks like everybody has muted those microphones. If you have a question, just unmute and chime in. These 2 buttons are kind of important. They're super important from a presenter's point of view. The first one is to view and mute participants. So if I click that, and you guys have this button or should, if you click the participants button, you should be able to see everybody in the meeting. Okay. In some cases, you can even click on a person to chat with them. Now, because you're in my room and I don't want my students chatting with each other, I've turned that off because that becomes a distraction. But in a meeting, it's nice to have that because then I can chat with somebody else, ask them a question and get clarification without interrupting. Okay, I got a question. Can individuals with Chromebook use the share button from the toolbar at the top of the screen? So I've got that turned off in this feature or in this room. So we're going to need to find out more about whether or not they can share. I've limited it so that my students can't share during a presentation because that gets distracting when other people's screens pop up during the presentation. The next bubble over, the chat bubble, if you haven't already clicked that, if you click it, it opens up a chat window. That way you can ask questions without having to unmute your microphone. You can also choose who you're going to chat with if your instructor has allowed that to happen. I think the way mine's set up is you are only allowed to chat with me or personally, so you can send me a private message or you can send a message to anyone in the meeting or everyone in the meeting. If you have it set up to where they can chat with each other, then all they have to do is click that arrow next to everyone and choose who they want to send a message to. But be aware that when you reply to that message, you need to make sure that you've changed who you're replying to because it automatically defaults to everyone. And I joked with my English team about this. If I send a message to Angie Puma making fun of Eric Smith's hair that day, and then Angie Puma just types in her response, yeah, that Eric Smith, he's a real weirdo. If she didn't change it to reply to Ron, then she just said to everyone that Eric Smith is a real weirdo, including Eric Smith. So he wouldn't appreciate that. So you want to make sure that, of course, we're maintaining professionalism and we wouldn't say that sort of thing in a meeting. And we also want to make sure that if we do, we're saying it to the right people. All right. So that's roughly how the chat works. Mostly what you're going to be using this for is for students to type in questions if you have a big group and you don't want everybody unmuting their microphone, because that can be distracting with a class of 30 kids, especially if you have some kids that are more dominant in their conversation. You might want to go with typing in the responses. Small group instruction, I've just told my kids, just unmute your microphone and ask. So I've had groups of 10 kids where that worked great. So it just really depends on what works for you. We have this little circle with 3 dots that gives you some more features, but at this point, I haven't found much use for any of those. As you're playing with it, you may find that it works for you, but those are more advanced pieces that I don't think we need to spend a lot of time with. Questions about these buttons? I suppose I should have gone over the red X. If you want to leave, that's what you click. It's that simple. And then it gives you a prompt to make sure that that's what you want to do. All right, let's see. We talked about the microphone. These are just going through each of the individual buttons, but we don't need to spend a lot of time with that. Here's that participants view. Yours might look a little bit different because I think this is from an older version. It's been updated a little bit. But what I see is the microphones along here. And if I want to, I can click and unclick to mute people if I need to. This is, again, what the chat window looks like. And then we're going to go to privileges. All right. So next we have the meeting privileges. Now, in my meeting itself, in the upper part of the screen, you should see some options like the file menu, like you would see in a lot of different programs. And you have I'm going to exit out of this screen sharing for just a second so that I can make sure that I'm telling you exactly how this works. Yes. So where you see if you look at the top of your screen, you should see file, edit, share, view, audio, participant, meeting, and help. Raise your hand if you see that. It's like it's on the top of the screen, just above where everybody's faces are. I'm seeing a few hands not raised, and those few hands look like they're the same ones that that don't have or that have Chromebooks. If that's the case, we're working on what's going on with that. I'm going to stop for questions real quick, just to make sure that, is there anyone that, yeah.
Ron, I have a question, only because I'm coming in after the fact. The screen you're talking about, what it's got file or whatever you said on top, where would I find that?
So right above our faces, it's the toolbar at the top of your monitor should have that. You want a Chromebook?
I am on a Chromebook.
Okay, so that seems to be the issue, is that if you're on a Chromebook, you don't have that file menu.
Okay.
And again, they're working on that. It's really not a huge deal because you're going to be able to set up these settings prior to the meeting, so you won't have to worry about it during the meeting. But if you do have those, you can change some settings while the meeting's happening. If you can't, or if you set it up beforehand, like I said, you won't have to worry about it. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen so I can show you what these tools can do. When I set up a meeting in Webex, or sorry, not when I set up a meeting, when I set up my personal room, basically what we're giving you is a virtual classroom where students can walk in the door. And that's what we want to do to make sure that everything is secure. And you get to set up some participant privileges. Some of the things that I've done is I've removed the ability for, I've unchecked this box. You'll see these as we go through the steps. I've unchecked this box because I don't want my students chatting with each other.
Okay.
But I do want them to be able to talk to me. I'm the host and presenter, and I want them to be able to ask questions for everyone. So now if a kid's getting out of hand and maybe they're typing stuff into the chat box that we don't want them to, I can actually remove that ability just by clicking on them in the participants window and muting them. And that keeps that from happening. I can also just kick them out of the room.
Okay.
So next we have, do you have any questions?
I do. How did
Go
you
ahead.
how did you get to that screen that you just had, that participant?
So that one that I just showed in the setup of our room when we do that later. Okay. This is just me showing you now a head start that we have that ability to do that. Talking about, went the wrong direction here. Talking about setting up the rooms in just a second. I'm sharing this screen with you just so you know that it's available to you. I'm going to send out this presentation to all of the aides. Actually, I'm going to send it out to all of the teachers and have the teachers forward it out to all of the instructional aides to make sure that everybody gets it. But this video kind of shows you how to join the meeting and the process for that. And the next video, and this is the really important one, this is the one that we're going to want you to view and walk through as you're doing it for yourself. This goes step by step in how you should set up your personal room. And the personal room is what I have you guys in right now. It's a web address that never changes. Anybody can go into the lobby of my room. It's like I have my own waiting room outside of my office. Anybody can go there. If they show up just at a random time, I get an email that says, Marco McKay is in your room or is in your lobby. And then I can click a link and I go and I open up my room and he can walk in the door. It's great for setting it up for classes too, because it's the same web address each time. And then my students know all they have to do is click on that web address when the time comes, which is exactly what you did. The email I sent out said, show up at noon, click this link. And I was here waiting for you. And then I see that you're waiting in the lobby and I click accept and you walk in the door. So I can pick and choose who gets to come in. The great thing about that is the bad thing is we had an issue where somebody not affiliated with the school was able to somehow find out the address, the web address of a meeting. They appeared in a class where a teacher was instructing students and they did some things they shouldn't have done. If the teacher had set up a private room, they could have just kicked the person out of the room or not even let them in the room to begin with. So this happened yesterday. So everything's been kind of updated starting today. So we're going to be using personal rooms only. And if you set the settings like we're going to walk through, you don't have to worry about anybody doing that. Okay? So this video is going to show you how to do it, but I'm actually going to walk you through those steps myself. So I'm going to exit out of this presentation and I'm going to show you in my Webex how I would do that. So I am going to type in, let's see, now I'm already forgetting I'm going to just go to my link. Sorry. I'm going to go to, and any of you could just do directly this part. So you can type in guhsdaz.webex.com and it's going to take you to your home page. And so you'll all have a home page. You're right here. You won't have this little silly picture. You'll have your initials right there. You can change that if you'd like. And that's going to be what people see when they see that you're in a room. And then right here, you have your personal classroom. Okay. And this is my personal classroom. That's the web address that I share with anyone, and they can show up to my room. If I want to start a meeting, I click Start Meeting, and then it takes me to my room and the meeting started. I can't click it now because I'm in a meeting right now with you guys. So, but what I can do is I can change my preferences. And this is extremely important that you do. When you set up your room, you're going to click, you're going to go to guhsdaz.webex.com. You're going to go to that homepage. You're going to click on Preferences, and then you're going to click on My Personal Room. Now I'm telling you this, but we've got these steps lined out in that document that's going to be emailed out to you at the end of this meeting. And that video is going to show you this as well. So don't panic. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff. And I always hated when IT guys would be like, well, first you click here and then here and then here and then here and then here and you're done and it's good. And I already forgot the first step. So please email me as you're doing this if you have questions. So you can change the name of your room. It gives you an automatic name. I didn't like that, so I changed it to Mr. Pinkerton's classroom. As long as nobody else has it, you can do that. That personal room link is right here. You don't have to worry about the host pin, but what you do need to do, everyone, 100%, this is district policy, is you need to click this checkbox that says automatically lock my room, and you need to set it at 0 minutes. That means I walk in my door and the door swings shut behind me and it's locked. And anybody who wants to come into my room needs to knock. Basically, they're waiting in the lobby, and in my participants window, it says that student, Donna King, is waiting outside my door. Do you accept? And all you have to do is click on them and they can come in the room. But that keeps somebody who shouldn't be there from joining. It also gives me the right to click on a student in the participant window and send them to the lobby. Okay. If you have your participant window open, I just want you to take a look at this real quick. Scroll to where you can see. Marco, can I use you as an example? I'm going to kick you out of my room for a second, and then I want you to just wait in the lobby and I'll invite you back in. And if everybody else just scrolls to where they see Marco, I'm going to show you what this looks like as he's getting sent out of the room.
I don't have Marco on my screen. What am I doing wrong?
If you're looking at the participants window, it's the little bubble in the bottom of the screen or bottom of your screen.
Okay, I had it unchecked.
Okay. So Marco, I kicked him out. He disappeared from the class. And now I admitted him back in, and here he is back again. Marco, thank you for letting me kick you out of the room. So you can do that with any student. How great is that? If I don't ever want to see him again because it's not one of my students and they're just in there to cause trouble, I also have the option to expel them from the classroom. They can't come back. They're gone from the meeting. And that's what we would do if it was somebody who just doesn't belong there. Like they're not in my class, they're not one of my students, they're just there causing trouble. Okay. So that is the number one thing that we need to make sure is done in our settings for my personal room. First thing you do when you set it up. Okay. I'm going to go back to the presentation here, and I think, yeah. All right. So that's the instructions for how to use it. The setting up is going to be emailed out to you in a moment. But really what you could all do right now is open up another tab in your browser and go to webex.guhsdaz.com. And you could get started on that as soon as we're done with the meeting. But I want to pause for any questions that you guys might have, or concerns or comments or any of that. So I'm going to switch out of this view so that I can see everybody's faces and make sure that I'm not missing anyone here. What can I do for you to ease your minds? Let me make a suggestion. Once you have set up your room, if the teachers that you work with have the time, set up a meeting with one of them to make sure that that you've got this ready to go. Or if that doesn't work, set up a meeting with a family member or friend. Give you a chance to chat with each other and to test out the features. Probably going to be the best way to do it. And family members and friends are the most forgiving if you mess up something.
Okay, so we can go ahead and do that just to kind of play around and make sure understanding.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. It was the way I figured out how to use it. Is I set up a meeting with my wife. So and she was sitting on the couch next to me. There was some feedback when we did that, but
I bet there was.
Yeah, but it's a great way to get used to it. And the way things are right now, it's nice to see somebody else's face. So, yeah. And if you have any trouble or want to practice anything else with this, feel free to email me your room link and a time to meet, and we'll set up a short meeting one-on-one.
Okay, because I know for me personally, the beginning of the week setting this all up, I'm sure I got a lot more gray hairs over this.
You're not the only one.
By today, I'm a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah, well, so to say that, like, to show you that we're all in the same boat, when we first started with this, I was trained on Webex myself. I'd never used it before, on Wednesday, and told I had to give a full faculty training on Thursday. So, it's nerve-wracking. We're all trying to figure it out as we go, but I'll tell you, our kids have been super forgiving. When we mess up, they get it. They're in the same boat. So it'll be okay. And the more we work with it, the more people are going to be able to help each other out. Just ask. Any other questions or concerns? Oh, okay. So what does the student see when they are kicked out of the room? When you joined my meeting today, it said something like you are in the lobby, or you from a room, because fortunately I haven't been yet. But I'm sure it says something very similar, as you have been expelled from this room.
Expel someone?
What's that?
Can you unexpel someone?
I think so. I think you can do that within the settings, but I would have to look into that a little more. It's a great question, because you might accidentally do that. I might accidentally do that. So that's something I'll look into and send out more info about.
So I don't anticipate having to do that to anyone, but just wondering.
All right, let's see. I have a couple questions typed in here. If I send attachments with an assignment to my instructional aides that are using Chromebooks, will they be able to share the documents with students? I think yes. They should be able to share the view of those documents. As far as allowing the students to work on them, that would be done through like Google Classroom or something like that. But they would be able to see what they are seeing. Another question, how do I do a split screen? So you want to see a document or something else on one screen and a presentation on the other? It depends on the device. on how you do that. Honestly, the best way to figure out and make sure you've done that right is to do a quick YouTube or Google search on how to do it, and there are going to be a tutorial. But make sure that you're typing in, how do I do a split screen on a Chromebook? How do I do a split screen on a Mac or split screen on a PC? Because that's going to be specific to those devices. Do people on Chromebooks have access to annotate? Again, that's an issue that I'm not 100% sure on. We're working on those Chromebook updates to make sure everything's working, and we'll send that information out as soon as possible. I see I wasn't able to share a document this morning. However, I wasn't able to highlight, or I was able to share a document this morning. However, I wasn't able to highlight or type on it. Valerie, was that on a Chromebook? Yeah, it was. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to have to, so thank you for pointing that out. So you were able to share, that's good. Yes. Sharing it is good, but just not being able to highlight or type on it. Did you own the document?
No, it was shared from Todd, and I opened that link up.
Okay, so what might be the issue with that is if you don't have editing rights on the document, it's not going to let you edit it or highlight or do anything anyway, whether you're in Webex or not.
Okay.
So what Todd would need to do is to give you the rights to edit the document in Google Docs, and that's in the sharing settings.
Actually, that's what he did. He sent it to me, and I was able to edit it when I wasn't sharing it, but when I opened up my personal room and shared it with the student, then I wasn't able to do anything on it. I was able to scroll up and down, but not edit it.
Good. It's not good that you weren't able to do that, but it's good that I know that that's what was happening. So I'm going to send that information back to my team to make sure that they're working on that.
Okay.
A fix for that. And you're using a Chromebook, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems to be that's the common denominator with these issues. I love Chromebooks. I'm like, they're my favorite thing in the world, but sometimes the software that's designed for a Mac or a PC isn't going to work as well. All right, so is there a way for a student and I to bring up System 44 books that they can therefore read to me? Can you open up the System 44 book in your on your computer, Anne?
Yes.
So you would do it through the sharing. Sharing is going to share anything on your desktop.
Oh, okay.
So, and then this is me speaking from the standpoint of somebody who has never opened up a System 44 book. So maybe it won't work, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work with that share button.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ron, when I was working with that student this morning and they couldn't share their screen.
So you would, in your room's settings, be able to allow that to happen.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick and show you what that would look like. So you guys are seeing this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, general. So I gotta look for some of this stuff because it must be here. Okay, so it's not in here. Let me see if I have it in. Oh, okay. So this is going to be an issue again for Chromebook users because it's that file menu at the top where it says participant, I have the option to allow anyone to share if I want. Could share with me. But that again seems to not be available with Chromebook users yet, but that's coming very soon.
Well, it's actually it's just disabled if you're not the host. So I'm on a MacBook and I'm clicking on the participant link.
Yeah, it's the Chromebooks that are the issue. So MacBooks seem to be okay, but Chromebooks don't have that file menu across the top.
You can let them try to do it.
What's that?
I'm saying just don't even have the option to even try to do it because like I have that in my toolbar and I can click on the participant link as a participant. Everything that's a host function is blocked off.
Yes. Yes, but our Chromebook users don't even see that menu at the top. So, and that's what we're working on. But yeah, so if I wanted to, so for those of you that have a device that allows you to see that under the participant window, right now it's grayed out because you're not the host, but I have a bunch of features that I can add or remove for those students' use. Any other questions?
And I'm on a Mac and I don't see that either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When you hover up at the top, you don't see a file menu? Is there a file menu on the side or the bottom of the screen somewhere?
So, Danny, you have to make sure that you're not in the full screen version of your Webex window because I had that same thing. At first, I couldn't find my toolbar. You have to play around. You can get kind of lost in having the chat open and having your screen view open. But if you can get it so that you can at least exit out, like you can get your red, yellow, and green circles of the Webex window, then you should be able to get your toolbar at the top.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so this again, this is and thank you, Marco, because you're seeing something I'm not because you're on a Mac, and that's good.
Right. It's a Mac thing.
So yeah, so this is another reason why we should play around with it. Maybe have video chat with somebody else, a friend or family member, to kind of see all of the different bells and whistles.
Okay.
All right. So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer, but unfortunately, I do need to jump out of this meeting in about 5 minutes. So if I can answer any last minute questions, otherwise email me with any of those.
We just put our personal WebEx address in the Google Classroom so that kids just have it.
That's what I do. And occasionally a kid will try to like join the room at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're not going to see anything. They're not even going to be able to talk with anyone else. I'm just going to get a weird email that says Joe Smith tried to join in your room at, and then it gives a time. And so I email them later and say, what are you doing? But they can't go inside the room and chat with anyone without you being there. So share those away. Any other questions? So I have to say that you guys have been the most attentive and have had the best questions of any of my presentations so far. So I really appreciate that. Thank you all. Please email me. It may take me a little while to get that email out to your teachers, but it's going to be happening very soon. That I'll send that info out to all of you. I just got to jump into this other meeting real quick. And then we'll get that to you. Have a great day. Email me with any questions or concerns you have. I'll be happy to get back to you.
Ron, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ron.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.